Felipe Klein from Soares, um, from EPE in Brazil, and Mr. Carlos Heche from ENEA, the Italian National Agency for New Technologies. We have a great panel here, and I'm sure everybody's looking forward to their presentations, and we'll follow this by a moderated discussion. So just to say how you can contribute, how you can get involved in the meeting, please feel free to write your comments and questions using the functions shown below. We'll do our very best to come to these questions, but if we don't, then we'll be happy to engage with everybody after the event. And now I'd like to turn to Dr. Brian Motherway, Head of Energy Efficiency at the International Energy Agency, to make his welcome remarks. Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mel. And again, on behalf of the IEA, let me add my welcome to all of you who are joining us today from various parts of the world. We're very pleased to see so many of you tuning in to join us in this important webinar, and I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion. We are here almost exactly to the day 1 year since the world went into lockdown because of COVID-19. It's been a challenging year for people in many ways, of course, those most severely hit, but even those of us who've been lucky enough not to face the most severe consequences have found our lives disrupted, our social lives, our working lives, our family lives. And of course, it has been a year of challenge for governments in many ways, not least in energy systems. And we've realized the importance of energy in our daily lives, the importance of resilient energy systems, the importance of access to affordable energy, and the role that energy plays in making all of our lives comfortable, making business possible, making economic life possible. We also realize at this point that as we start to look to economic recovery from the crisis, that we need governments to focus on job creation, economic stimulus, but also we need to strengthen our direction of travel towards clean energy transitions and towards decarbonization of the energy system. There's been many disruptions in the last year, and we saw carbon dioxide emissions from energy fall quite dramatically. But according to IEA tracking, even just last December, we saw a return to normal patterns of CO2 emissions, indicating that without stronger policy action, we have not turned the corner and we are not on track to tackle the challenges we face in terms of decarbonizing electricity and energy systems more broadly while maintaining affordability and security. One opportunity cuts across all of these things in terms of resilience, affordability, job creation, and clean energy acceleration, and that's energy efficiency. We know it has tremendous potential to play a role to make people's daily lives better, to help economies recovery, and to put us firmly on a path towards a clean energy future. But we also know that there is huge untapped potential in energy efficiency. Some countries, including those represented here today, have made tremendous progress and have showed what is possible, but they've also shown us that more is possible. And that's, of course, where global benchmarking comes in. When we benchmark countries across the world, we can see what potential remains, what opportunities there are for energy efficiency, but we can also help industry and governments learn from each other in terms of how to tap into that potential. We can see what technologies, what energy management systems, what operational approaches, but most of all, what policies can unlock the additional energy efficiency potential that we see in all sectors and not in all economies. And that's why international exchange is so important on this topic and why we're so pleased to be working with so many countries on this topic to help countries and governments understand how energy efficiency can be strengthened, particularly in industry in key sectors, and what technologies and policies can help do that. I particularly want to acknowledge today the leadership that Japan has shown in recent years in accelerating this topic, particularly during its presidency of the G20 in 2019 and ongoing through its support of our work and its support of international engagement and collaboration on global benchmarking. And I'm particularly looking forward to hearing from Mr. Masana Izawa, who's the director of the Energy Efficiency Division at Japan's Energy Ministry, METI. And I particularly want to say to you, Mr. Izawa, that we greatly appreciate the collaboration and engagement we have with you and your team, and we look forward to that continuing. I also note that we have a great range of speakers in today's webinar, and I think we're going to have some great exchange. So I do encourage you all to get involved, ask some questions, join the conversation, and help us explore how this issue can help us learn from each other and where we should take it next. We at the IEA are your willing partners across the world to help understand how to strengthen energy efficiency policies to deliver benefits to all citizens and all countries. So thank you again for joining us today, and I look forward to what I think is going to be a very interesting discussion. Mel.
Thank you very much, Brian. Before we move on, could I please ask all the presenters to turn their cameras on so that we could take a family photo? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for indulging us on that, and thank you, Brian, for your opening remarks and setting the scene so well for us today. I'm going to make a brief presentation on the findings of the work that we've been doing that Brian's just introduced. By way of introduction, I'm Mel Slade. I'm the Senior Programme Manager here at the Energy Efficiency Division of the IEA. And I'm your host for the rest of the day. So let's take a look at why we're here. Why are we talking about industrial energy efficiency? So industry, of course, contributes a large share to global energy use and also carbon dioxide emissions. This is something that's been growing in recent years, and industrial energy consumption has grown by about 1.5 times over the past 25 years and accounts for something like 40% of total final energy consumption. On the left-hand side here, on our colourful diagram, you can see that iron and steel is the green sector, and non-metallic minerals is the yellow sector. And now non-metallic minerals, about 95% of that is cement. But that's in total final energy consumption. If we go to the right and just look at industry specifically, here we have chemicals at the top in blue, iron and steel in green, cement in yellow, and other industry in red. So large contributors to global energy consumption. Here we're looking at our path to net zero emissions, a subject that is getting a great deal of attention today. And the biggest and most obvious sector here is power generation. But we've seen huge progress in renewable energy technologies in recent times, and we have optimism that renewables are going to help us decarbonise the power sector. We then have the opportunities brought about through electric cars. Again, technology here is progressing, government policies pushed in, partnership with industry are going well. So we're looking, the future for electric cars is looking extremely positive. But then we have three sectors which are much more difficult to address, and where we're not seeing such obvious technological changes available to us in the near term. So particularly in transport, particularly in heavy duty vehicles, in industry, which we'll come on to, and then buildings and other sectors. So that's why our focus for today is on industry, this big yellow sector. So we approach this looking at the best, we're thinking about government intervention in particular here, what can government do? And we see there being a policy package for industry which covers regulatory approaches, information approaches, and incentives. Regulatory approaches obviously are things like standards and requiring audits, reporting, action on those audits. Information helps companies understand what they can do to improve efficiency, and then incentives help create a market pull to try and encourage the most efficient practices. In times like today, where we have economic stimulus packages being published by governments around the world, we have an extremely good opportunity to focus incentives on industry. And so that's something that we would like to focus attention on. So we have an ideal opportunity to um, have more grants, have industry transformation programs, but also require them to have energy efficiency outcomes. So if industry is offered support, then there can be ties which would help improve energy efficiency. I heard somebody say recently, "Why let a good crisis go to waste?" And that's the point. You know, there's money being poured into economic recovery, and we'd like to see some that's targeted at industry come with requirements for increased efficiency. I'd like to just show in another way here these three elements: the regulations, which push the market, um, the information which continues with improved efficiency, and incentives which pull the top end of the market to higher performance. And we're going to talk about a few of these today actually in the presentation, but primarily it's benchmarking that we're looking at. And here, benchmarking obviously helps sectors understand how they're performing. It helps government set targets, and it helps attract also performance against those targets. So homing in now on today's subject even further, we're looking at tracking progress in iron, steel and cement in this particular work. As the world urbanises, the requirement for iron, steel and cement has been growing significantly and is expected to continue doing so. So while processes have improved and energy intensity has improved in the last decades, the total demand has gone up, and so with that, emissions are still going up. This means that more than ever, there's an opportunity, as Brian said, to make sure that we have collaboration globally, we share best practices, and we help each other understand what the opportunities are for improving energy efficiency in these critical sectors. Just starting with iron and steel then, this is a chart showing the energy intensity or the energy use per tonne of crude steel and share of crude steel by process in G20 countries. So it's quite a complex chart, but the important thing to note is that we have to be very careful when we're comparing the energy consumption in this context, because different countries use different processes, and those processes can be more or less efficient. So just to be more specific, primary steel consumption, steel production is much more energy intensive than using secondary routes where we're melting scrap in electric arc furnaces. So that blend will impact on the total energy consumption in a country. And it can mask the opportunities for improving energy efficiency. So when we're looking at this data, we need to be careful that we can unpack those sorts of issues. Likewise with cement. This is looking at electricity consumption in cement. Now, this does vary also depending on regional factors such as the product quality that's required, the raw materials that are being used. So we have to understand those things very carefully when we're comparing one country with another and looking at opportunities for energy efficiency improvements. It's not to say that this isn't useful, it's just to say that we have to have a more sophisticated view of the data. Likewise with Clinker. I mean, some countries are having great success with using alternative fuels in Clinker, reducing the carbon emissions, and there are lessons that can be shared across the board here. One of the things that's happening and is recommended is much more publicly available data on all of these sectors so that comparisons are much more easily possible and much more meaningful as well. So as Brian said, we've been working on this benchmarking project with the government of Japan, looking at the energy efficiency levels in G20 countries, focusing on these industrial sectors. And this report that outlines the key findings is about to go live, so any moment now. So you're welcome to look at the IEA website and take a look at the report. So, and we talk here a bit about how countries use the benchmarking approach to design and implement more effective energy efficiency policies. And that really sets the context for the next presentations that we're going to have now today. Before we move on to that, I'd just like a moment on data. We want the more granular indicators. They're much more meaningful, but there are difficulties in deriving them. And it's all about what data is available, broken down by process route. And the more of that that's available, the more that we can collect, the better our indicators will be, the more useful they'll be for guiding policy. So we would encourage people who are involved in the industries to help collect that data. And we have a questionnaire that's used across countries around the world on this subject, and it's freely downloadable. So we'd like people to take a look at it and see if they can help us gather this more disaggregated data. So that's the scene setting. That's some of the challenges and where we are. And now we have 4 great speakers to help dig into some of this a bit further. And I'm going to hand over straight away, if I may, to our partner in this work, Mr. Mazana Azwa from the Energy Efficiency Division from METI. Thanks again. I'd like to add my thanks to Brian for collaborating with us on this and for all of the support that you've given the IEA in this area. And we're very happy to be here today to be able to present the results of that work. So thanks again, and Mr. Azawa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mel and Brian and the IEA team. I'm Masana Ezawa, Director of Energy Efficiency Division, Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, Japan. Thanks to IEA great report, the project report of global energy efficiency benchmarking was launched at this time. This report would be a great milestone. I'm sorry, I'm on mask. This report would be a great milestone for future. I expect that this report will lead further development of energy efficiency in each country. Related to this analysis, Japan has recently revised energy efficiency benchmark system to promote further energy efficiency. Please turn next page, please. Firstly, let me talk about current status of energy efficiency and overview of benchmark system. Energy efficiency plays a key role carbon neutral society. According to IEA analysis, energy efficiency improvement will have contributed to 15% of energy reduction in carbon neutral for future. Please next page. Next page, please. Japan has achieved one of the highest level of energy efficiency in the world. Sorry, page 3, please. Energy efficiency in the world, but pace of improvement now slowing, especially in some industries, including steel. Energy intensity has leveled up. Further energy efficiency improvement is necessary now. Next page, please. In order to improve energy efficiency in industrial sector, Japan introduced the benchmark system to 2009. Currently, a benchmark covers 70% of energy consumption in the industrial and commercial sectors. Next page, please. Benchmark performance indicators must follow 3 principles, and that is covering wide scope of energy consumption, quantity measurable, accurately representing status of energy efficiency, and simple and understandable is a very important thing. And also benchmark target level are based on three concepts. Represent best available technology and be the top 10 to 20 level and internationally high level. These things, three things are very important for our benchmark system. Next page, please. Benchmark system set 2030 as a target year, but target level will be revised when a majority of companies have achieved them. In 2020, benchmark indicator were revised considering the issues in each industry. Next page, please. Based on this benchmark system, the government can conduct on-site inspection to businesses whose energy efficiency efforts are insufficient. Also, energy efficiency subsidy are available for those companies who achieved the benchmark target level. The point is a balance between regulations and incentives. Government of Japan is comparing our benchmark with EU ETS to improve our benchmark. Next page, please. These two tables show specific sectors covered by benchmark system, performance indicator, and target level. I will talk about division of electric furnace steel sector shown in red frame. Next page and the next page, please. Next page. Page 11, please. Although it covers many processes and product in benchmark system, there are some issues. For instance, our steel production with electric furnace production process vary by product, and energy intensity vary as a result. Next page, please. Differences in production process result in gap of energy intensity due to factors other than energy efficiency effort. For example, in steel production with electric furnace, the energy intensity differs twice between companies because of production composition is very different between companies. Next page, please. The benchmark indicator were revised to solve these issues by revising formula of benchmark indicator. The influence of product composition should be excluded. This makes possible to evaluate properly the energy efficiency effort of various companies. Next page. In order to revise and improve benchmark survey, surveys sent to manufacturing companies, and revision is confirmed through the analysis and discussion with experts. Next page. I would like to compare with EU ETS target level. Next page, please. As noted, global benchmark report of IEA, it is very important to compare policies in other countries. Compared with EU ETS, Japan's benchmark system covers wider scope. However, I mentioned earlier, Japan's benchmark has also some issues. The gap between companies are wider compared with EU ETS because we covered large area of production process. Next page, please. This slide shows comparison of EU ETS and Japan's benchmark target level. Japan's benchmark at that time at the same level with EU ETS phase 3. In closing, taking into account Japan's benchmark system, we expect energy efficiency policy of each country would be further developed. Thank you, attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. And thank you for illustrating how we have to break these parts of the process down in order to be comparable. So I think that comparison with the EU ETS was extremely useful there. We'll go on to our next, before we talk about the presentations and ask questions, we'll go through all of these presentations. So we're going to go now to Dr. Ashok Kumar from the Bureau of Energy Efficiency in India. Dr. Kumar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Malini Salad, and thank you, IA, for the opportunity. Dr. Brian, distinguished panelists, and all the participants across the platform here. So my presentation is basically about a program that India runs on the industrial benchmarking. So that's popularly known in our parlance as PAT, which is, next please, which is basically a perform, achieve, and trade scheme, which short name is PAT, where the identified, mostly this is related to energy intensive sectors. So they are supposed to, kind of mandated to improve the energy efficiency based on certain specific norms that are set up. So as the presentation of IA also mentions about the key parameters of benchmarking, like one on the regulatory aspect, and then you should have information aspect and the incentive. So this scheme also carries all of these in a some different combination, but of course all are there. So this particular scheme, we have tried to bring out 5 key features of it. So on the regulatory front, we have a statute under which we form the norms and benchmarks. And then to inform them, we get into a huge consultation exercise, a lot of association workshops, capacity building exercises. And the other key aspect of this particular program is that this program is very, very unit specific. We are making their benchmark or the targets based on their own levels of competence. So every target assigned or every benchmark is very unit specific, and the comparison is made with themselves. Of course, there is a grouping and given the relative responsibility also with a similar category of participants, units. So we also recognize that those who are already at the better benchmark have a lesser opportunity for further improvement into their benchmarks. So we give a little lesser burden on the better ones than the larger burden on the ones which are not that performing. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah, so pictorially, this is how it appears. We have the incentive part where the overperformers are given certain certificates in terms of their energy performance or efficiency improvement or benchmark improvement. and then they are incentivized by those instruments. And if they are not able to meet those benchmarks, there is a mechanism for making that compliance. And if that is also not done, then there is a provision for penalty under the statute. Next, please. So the story of this particular program is that it started in 2012, and currently we are down the line around 8-9 years down the line of that scheme. And this scheme has shown a lot of promise and given a lot of results. We are through 2 cycles of PAT, which is broadly 3 to 4 years. If we take all the exercises of verification and other baseline assessment, everything put together. So the impact of this particular program is that we have been able to save or avoid the mitigation of about 90 million tons of CO2 from the benchmark level of 2010, 11. So that is the impact of this particular program, where we are covering almost 30% of the total country's consumption, participating from around 11 to 13 sectors. As on date, there are 13 sectors participating. So in the cycle 2 that just ended last year has resulted into the numbers that you see on the screen and the green box, about 14 million tons of energy saving and about 66 million tons of carbon emission reduction or avoidance. And if you convert in terms of monetary savings, it's around 4.5 billion USD. So it's a huge saving that has incurred from such a focused program. So next, please. So the coverage you see, there are 13 sectors that currently under this program. We have, you name it, all the big ones are here: iron and steel, cement, refinery, distribution companies, and also from, the portfolio is also manufacturing, service, and all kinds of transport. So it is a diverse kind of set of participants which are participating under this program. And we are continuously, since 2016-17, we have been rolling this program on an annual basis. And if you see that currently, we have already in parallel running multiples of such programs in the Indian industrial sector. And we are moving forward in the similar direction in the times to come. Next, please. So currently, as you saw on the last table, that we already have rolled out 6 cycles of PAT scheme, and around over 1,000 units are participating, belonging to 13 energy intensive sectors. We do regular widening and the deepening. We call widening is the inclusion of more participants in sector-wise, or deepening is the inclusion of more units by reducing the threshold. So we exercise both the operations. And we are also looking at other sectors. We already have identified around 7 additional sectors to be, or potential sectors that could be included. One such is the airport. Under the building sector, we are currently in process of inclusion in the next cycle of PAT scheme. Next, please. So we, as you know, we are increasing the scope. We are, at very soon we are going to notify the cycle 7 of the scheme. We are also trying to make this energy denominated instrument we call energy certificates to have a larger uptake with possible linkages with the other market-based instruments, and also to see if it can be linked to a larger carbon market. We are also in kind of assessing the possibility of changing into the statute so that we would have more scope for the program to be expanded in other sectors on the regulatory regime. And also we would like to see this particular scheme into small and medium scale enterprises. So this is broadly, I think, next please. That's what I think I have for this presentation. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar. The PAT scheme, as you say, embodies all of the elements of the ideal policy package, and it's one of those examples of policy design that I have to say that we promote widely across the world, from country to country, because we think that you need all of those elements, and the thing that's missing in most places is the incentive, and having the opportunity to trade is of course a really important one. And we're really interested, as you know, in working with you on how we can take that forward and look at how that might work in the context of a carbon trading scheme. So thank you very much, and we'll come back, like I said, to questions later on. We're going to go to Mr. Felipe Soares of EPE. Thank you so much for getting up for us. Great to see you here. Thank you also for the collaboration that we have, close collaboration between the Energy Efficiency Division and EPE, and looking forward to your presentation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm requesting the control now so I can move with my presentation. So thank you very much, Melanie, for the introduction. My name is Felipe Klein Soares. I work at EPE, which is the Energy Research Office in Brazil, which is a public company linked to the Ministry of Mines and Energy in our country. So my presentation today will be about the importance of data collection for benchmarking analysis in the industry. I'm trying to move the slides, but it's not working. Okay, so this is the agenda for today's presentation. I'm going to talk about national energy statistics, data collection, validation, benchmarking in industry. Then I'll finish with the main challenges. First, EPE, the company where I work, has the institutional role to implement and keep national energy statistics, as well as to publish the Brazilian Energy Balance, which is a yearly publication that contains national statistics on energy supply and consumption by source and sector, international energy trades, transfer emission centers, and some others that you can see in this slide. We have historical data from 1970, so last year we celebrated 50 years of national statistics, and we always like to say that the Brazilian Energy Balance is not only an important tool it's not only a starting point to do long-term energy studies, but it is also an important tool to monitor effects of energy policies that were adopted in Brazil in the past. So this slide contains the institutional framework for data collection and validation in Brazil. You can see on the left and at the bottom the companies that provide data for us so we can build our national statistics, so we can publish the Brazilian Energy Balance. And it's this block on the left and at the bottom, they account for approximately 80% of all data that we collect. The 20% rest is either estimated or collected from sectoral associations, and we also have an online data collection. It's very important to say that these companies on the left and at the bottom, they do not only participate in data collection processes, but also in validation. So we only publish the Brazilian Energy Balances and other products once all data is analyzed and validated by all of these institutions under the coordination of EP. These products, they are used in our long-term energy studies, such as the 10-year energy expansion plan or the long-term expansion plan. and also in the Atlas of Energy Efficiency that we publish every year. So moving to the importance of benchmarking in industry, we all know that the benchmarking industry is very important. I have pointed out some reasons in this slide, but to do benchmarking analysis, it's very important to have data. And to have data, we have had some challenges that we are facing in Brazil to be able to collect data. The first one is to engage and keep Brazilian institutions that provide data engaged with this work. We have had the experiences of being able to engage industries in providing data, but they do it for 1 or for 2, 3 years, then this engagement loses strength. So it's really a challenge for us to keep them engaged. And we are trying to overcome this challenge by seeking contact with industrial associations in Brazil. And when there is not an industrial association, we seek contact directly with the industrial plants to discuss data, indicators, technologies, and policies related to energy consumption and efficiency. In this way, we believe that industry feels more represented by adopted policies and by what we publish in terms of data and indicators. We also encourage the development of energy management systems. We have seen some big industries adopting them in the past years. So it helps us also in the relationship and to get data from them. So these are some examples of publications developed by APE in the last few years with benchmarking analysis. We have the Atlas of Energy Efficiency, and in 2020 we have, and in 2019 we have also some other publications that are only in Portuguese, and this Atlas of Energy Efficiency, they are published also in English, so you're welcome to check them out. These are just the covers of the last publications that we had with benchmarking analysis. The Atlas of Energy Efficiency had cooperation with IEA to benchmark industry in the last few years. So I will put some examples of analysis that we did in the last Atlas of Energy Efficiency. This was taken out from the Atlas in 2019, a table with comparing Brazil to other countries in terms of mandatory policies and other measures regarding energy efficiency, not only in industrial sector, but also in other sectors. I put some examples of industrial standards that we have in Brazil. For example, we have labeling of electric motors and centrifugal pumps. We also have in Brazil an association called Brazilian Association of Technical Standards that set standards not only for industrial sector, but also for some other sectors as well. And this is a slide very similar to what Melanie showed us earlier, comparing Brazil with some other countries in terms of specific consumption for electricity in the cement sector in Brazil. And it's we can see that Brazil is well positioned, but we still have a way to go to reach the best available technology. And a very interesting analysis here is that was made by the Cement Sector Association in Brazil, that one technology called waste heat recovery could achieve 25 to 30% reduction in an industrial plant electrical consumption. And this is a reality in countries such as China and India, but in Brazil there's only one plant that was designed integrating this equipment. So there is a good potential of electricity efficiency by implementing this technology here in Brazil in the cement sector. Another example of that was taken out from the Atlas of Energy Efficiency. This is a table that shows examples of programs to improve energy efficiency of the cement sector, and you can see that we put the P18, the Perform, Achieve, and Trade from India, which is a really good policy, good program, and we tried here to compare Brazil to get some examples of good policies and to understand how they work, maybe to take some aspects of good aspects of them to be implemented in Brazil. Here I show a timeline with current energy efficiency policies. We have been adopting policies since the 80s. These are policies that cover not only the industrial sector, but also other sectors in the Brazilian economy. And just pointing out the main challenges that we have by doing data collection and studies to support the energy planning and benchmarking analysis, is that we have to keep the Brazilian institutions that provide data engaged with this work. We have to obtain more disaggregated end-use data to update or develop our models. And we have to improve data collection in industry, mainly because we have a list of industries that we collect data, but the collection, providing of data in Brazil is not mandatory. So we have to improve data collection and keep them engaged. And we have to promote the best link between energy efficiency policies and indicators evaluation. And just a quick message that I want to deliver is that in Brazil, for example, we have seen that it's really important to involve industry in data collection and discussion to develop policies. Otherwise, they might not be so willing to comply. And when they are involved, they are willing to follow the policies that are developed. Just a glossary with to explain all the institutions that I mentioned before. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the great example of building from the national energy balances all the way through to refining down to a much more disaggregated area of industrial energy efficiency and showing us the steps along the way. Also, thank you for highlighting the importance of seeing what other countries are doing and sharing their experience when you're developing your own policies and programs. We're going to go on to our last presentation now before we go into a panel discussion. This presentation is from Carlos Heche from Italy's National Energy Agency. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present our work in energy efficiency benchmarking on Italy and based on the energy audits. And this is part of our work of ENEA, that is our national agency for new technologies, energy and sustainable economic development. ENEA, okay, well, okay, there is some problem with the format on the presentation, but ENEA is a research agency on energy and sustainability. We are dividing four main departments, one close with the energy technologies, another with nuclear fusion and security, another one is related on sustainability, and we are the energy efficiency department. That we are also the National Agency for Energy Efficiency. So we support public and private companies and administrations in all the aspects related with energy efficiency. Specifically, our technical unit develop and manage the energy audit database. Also, we carry out the control and verification, create sectoral guidelines, and develop methodologies for measurement and monitoring of the energy efficiency and energy audits. In this slide, we present a main overview on the framework of the energy audit ecosystem in 2019. This is a very important year because this was the first year on the second cycle for mandatory energy audits for large enterprises and energy intensive enterprises in Italy and all Europe, because this is directly linked with the European Energy Efficiency Directive. All these large companies are obliged to do the energy audit each 4 years. ENEA link from one side the policymaker, that this is the Ministry of Economic Development, with the private stakeholders, the enterprises, the business associations, and also the energy auditors and the ESCOs that carry out the energy audits. And this year was produced more than 11,000 energy audits from more than 6,000 enterprises, covering and auditing more than 1/3 of the gross inland consumption of the country. We analyze and we obtain information from more than 600 sectors and very granular level, and we have a lot of communication and work with the different associations in order to produce very good quality data. What are the specific, there's this problem with the format anyway. So what are the main particularities of the Italian scheme? First of all, we have a procedure for clustering in multi-sites large companies. Okay, so if there is some big companies with several sites and with some associated companies, it's not necessary to do a specific energy audit for each site. You need to put the focus in the most representative sites and the most representative companies. So it's very important to put the efforts in the most representative and the most useful for the companies and for all the systems. So you can cluster the multi-site as function of your classes and your production. It's also important to note that it's compulsory to have a monitoring system of the energy consumption, or at least a strategy as function of your maturity level. Moreover, the energy audit include the energy intensive enterprises, including some sectors, that there also include the small and medium enterprises. That is very particular to have a very good information, a very detailed information on the consumption on SMEs national level. Also, we have a promotion on the energy management system, simplifying the procedures for the companies that have these ISO schemes, and also we ensure the quality on the database by means of the certification scheme for auditors and ESCOs. So most of the energy audit was carried out by certified experts, and also we have a very high engagement with users and associations. Very important work has been done in order to have a very robust and comprehensive database. Okay, our database includes several documents from all the companies, and we can obtain information regarding all the plant site and also on different activities and different sectors. So we can obtain information at very, very different levels and with very different detail. So we obtain information about the production on general data. Specifically, we can also analyze 10 different energy carriers and also evaluate the energy performance improvement actions, both implemented in these 4 years and also identified for the next years. So this is a very good point for doing benchmarking. Moreover, at first level, okay, we prepare a benchmarking of the complete site. Okay, so our first work is to have a high-level analysis, including a correlation between the energy consumption and the annual production. Okay, so we prepare the first step a linear regression of these variables, and according with this, we analyze 400 sectors at 4 different carriers. We analyze the global consumption, the electrical consumption, the thermal consumption, and also the gas. So we have this analysis. With this, when the correlation is good, we prepare specific analytical physical models in order to have the specific energy consumption, and we can also split it as function of the class production, the different technologies, and so on, producing a specific simplified indicators with having mean value and standard deviation quality of the dispersion of the standardization availability for for the sector. For example, in the cement, it's possible to have a good correlation with the data, and we have strong indicators. But in the case of the iron and steel, we have a very heterogeneous system. So we have a lot of different indicators as function of the class size, the production, the technologies, and so on. So it's very difficult to have specific homogeneous indicators, as presented previously in the other presentations. Finally, in this last slide, okay, I present what are the uses of this benchmarking. Firstly, our first activity is to policy support with the Ministry of Economic Development. Biannually, we have an analysis of the energy consumption of the energy-intensive industries that have a specific tax relief, and we are doing also we are planning to do it also for the gas consumption. Okay, so we are tracking the indicators on the electrical consumption. Moreover, we support the incentivization of energy efficiency measurements, mainly in the part of the monitoring of the consumption. Okay, so this is integrated in the call program Transition 4.0 in order to increase the digitalization on the companies. Moreover, we also track the implementation of the APIs linked with the specific energy savings with the Article 8.7 on the European Energy Efficiency Directive, and also we give a specific support on the SMEs. We are focused on the support to SMEs policies at national level when there are some changes in regulatory uses, and at regional level with the promotion of energy audits. Moreover, we have sectorial analysis at very different levels, from the best technologies available with the specific consumption and producing tools for the auto-evaluation of the companies. We also evaluate the market driving implementation of APIs and what are the trends on the market for the energy efficiency measurements. Specific analysis on the impact on these measurements on SMEs or in companies with energy management system and so on. And also we have a very continuous feedback also with the industrial association, because they are the final user and the stakeholder more interested in do the improvement on the energy efficiency. So this is a work of a team that we are working on help to transform an obligation of doing the mandatory energy audits in an opportunity to improve your energy efficiency. And we are working on prepare a lot of documents this year for a specific analysis on the sectors and with monographies and so on. So thank you very much for your attention, and sorry for this problem with the format, because it's not I don't know what's happening. Okay, anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I found that really interesting in the context of how you take a large number of audit reports and you're able to draw themes from them through the way that you are able to analyze them because of the way that they're laid out. And I think there's a lot that others could learn from that process, because you know, lots of audits are done, but the information in them is not always very accessible, and it's also not all that useful often for governments in terms of pulling things together and being able to draw policy conclusions from them. So I think it's really, really interesting. So we've had 4 completely different, of course, presentations there, going from Japan with a long-standing benchmarking process to India with their holistic program, which is PAT, and we've seen how audits can work to help us too, and how international collaboration's also been important. So I'd like to ask the panel a few questions, if I may, and I would like to start with an issue that's been touched on by everybody, but is always really very difficult, and that is the best programs, the most successful programs are those that have been developed on collaborations between governments and industry. And so I'd like to please ask our speakers for their top tips for how to collaborate with industry on a long ongoing basis. What's worked really well for them? And I'd like to start with asking our colleague from Japan, Mr. Ozawa, how Japan makes sure that that relationship with industry is long-term, ongoing, fruitful, very positive.
There are some key point. We have good relationship with industry. I think there are just 3 steps for keeping good relationship with industry. Communicate closely with industry associations and sometimes with each company. We are doing daily conversation with industry and encourage their discussion. Private company have more information than government, so that role of government is encourage private companies to think about and discuss among themselves in the industrial associations. And the other things, set the target is very important. And combine benchmark and with subsidy measures. The point is balance between regulation and incentives. We have to encourage private company to improve energy efficiency by using incentive programs, so that they can provide their money to improve their energy efficiency.
So just as a follow-on, what have you found the most successful incentives?
You're talking about the fund, finance.
Sorry, what have been the most? You said you have to incentivize industry as well as regulate. What are the most successful incentives in your opinion?
We are doing financial support by subsidy to companies who invest their energy efficient equipment by subsidy. Subsidy is funded by our carbon taxes. Okay. So government have fund to incentivize private company to invest their equipment.
Great, thank you. And if I could take that same question to India, to Dr. Kumar, what are your top tips for keeping those relationships with industry strong and long-term and very productive?
Thank you, Melanie. And I think I will take what Mr. Ozawa has left in the many of the points that we need to have consultation with participants, particularly industry, and also have a clarity of the information that what the exercise that is going to be, and then to kind of enable them. For instance, I just share the experience of that in the Indian context is that we had a huge round of consultations right from the line ministries who handle those industries, and then the industry associations and the industry themselves in every process of the benchmarking. We have involved them right from the policy formulation and the formulation of the methodology, because we realize that, as I think Mr. Ozawa has also kind of indicated, that the industry has much better information on the processes or the technicalities or the other aspects of how industry works and how the benchmarking can be better done, we have realized that they have much more expertise, and with associating with them, the benefit what we got in the PAT exercise was that we could get the support from best of the experts that is with the industry associations and industry themselves. They were readily willingly participating to contribute to make the benchmarking process robust, which is not only helpful for the regulator, but helpful for them to implement. And to other aspect that you mentioned about the motivation part, what we saw is that Indian efficiency program is hardly there is any subsidy component to it. You know, these are all return based, or the kind of benefit that the efficiency activity itself brings out on the table. So that itself is attracting many of our participants, be it in the industry or in the domestic or in all aspects. So Indian efficiency, you can say, journey is very much more market and the industry or the participant supported, looking at the value that energy efficiency activity brings in. Very less to do with the government subsidy that we have been providing. Rather, there were very little. So I think efficiency intervention itself has this business proposition, which motivates the industry to participate. So that is our experience. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. That's very interesting, because it's clearly in some economies that incentive is more necessary than others. And as you say, we would hope that the benefits that energy efficiency brings in terms of reduced costs, increased competitiveness, you know, would be enough in their own right. So interesting to see the differences there. And could we perhaps go now to Brazil, Mr. Suarez? How do you keep the relationships with industry strong? You mentioned that they've been a bit come and go. Sometimes there's been good years and less good years. So what are your recommendations for strengthening those?
Well, I have said that we have to seek direct communication with industry and industrial associations when they exist in Brazil. But I believe that this communication shouldn't be only one way from industry to government. It should be a two-way communication line. We have to get in touch with them and seek engagement to have their data, their indicators. But we also have to provide feedback to industry about what we do with these indicators and data that we get from them. And we do this by publishing our numbers in our studies, in the Brazilian Energy Balance, in the Atlas of Energy Efficiency, by doing webinars and workshops with the industry, and also by showing some results of programs of energy efficiency that exist in Brazil. And by doing this, I think we gain, it's really a good exchange. It's a win-win situation. We get more input to do our energy studies, our longer-term energy studies, and industries get more encouraged to keep this relationship open and going further. I think this is the main tip I would give to other countries if they want to seek a long-term communication. Transparency is fundamental when we deal with industry, so they feel involved and encouraged to keep the work going further.
And are there any incentives in Brazil for industry to invest in energy efficiency?
Well, there are some programs. There's Programa Aliança, Brazil, more productive Brazil, in which companies they can apply to participate in this energy efficiency programs, and to build energy management systems to improve their energy efficiency.
Thank you. And is there a financial incentive for that, or is it that they get the
yes, there is technical and financial incentive.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. And then to Italy, to Mr. Hecce. Perhaps I could ask all the speakers, by the way, to keep their cameras on now, and then we can feel like we're having more of a conversation. So if everybody could turn their cameras on. Sorry, Mr. Hecce, over to you. So how do you keep the relationships with industry strong in Italy?
Yes, this is the main point, I think so. So we prepare from the very beginning, we are working with the industrial association. So it's easier to understand what is the problems of specific sectors and what is how to achieve more, involve more the stakeholders. It's true that in our case it's mandatory. So it's very important to help them to develop their energy audits. Okay, so so it's important to understand what is we are here to help you to do your obligation. Okay, and it's very important to have this feedback also from the part of the ministry. We are linking the both sides. Okay, so it's true that the private side, all the business association have their we are helping to develop them, and ministry also respond helping them. Okay, so there are this continually feedback from between the ministry and the associations. It's important also to involve all the industrial, not also the industrial association, but also other associations regarding, for example, the Federation of the Energy Auditors and also the Federation of ESCOs. So it's important to have also what is the role of all these parts, and mainly be on site. Okay, we are in the 2019 we prepare one event a week in the different regions and with different sectors and so on in order to help them. So this is very important, and prepare specific documentation to help them to do the better and simpler the energy audits. We have 16 guidelines with specific documents, with specific topics for help them to do this work. So I think that this is very, very important to help to do it. And after the first step, is the collaboration and the feedback continues automatically, because we are growing all together. So this is more the idea.
So so you help technically. Are there any financial incentives for companies to be involved?
Okay, there are several incentives, okay, and there are living different lives, okay, so because for several years the white certificates scheme was very successful, but in the last years it's in another step. Anyway, there are specific subsidies, and there are specific funds for energy efficiency and on different topics, okay, because this part I was talking about the energy audits for the benchmark, but there are very different other topics regarding to the decarbonization for the AUDITS, also the effort sharing regulation, a specific directive for buildings, and so on. So there is a very heterogeneous funding initiative for the energy efficiency. So we have tracking or more or less 30 programs at different levels and so on. So it's very complex. Okay, so
thank you very much. So again, really interesting approaches varying across countries, from financial incentives being necessary to the energy efficiency benefits once the information's been made available being enough for companies. So I think that's fascinating. I'd like to go to another question to ask you all as well. Thinking of this from a government perspective now. So what do you think the main benefits of improving benchmarking on energy efficiency are from a government perspective? How are they most well successfully used? And if we go to Japan, please, to Mr. Ozawa again. You're muted.
Thank you, Mel. There are many benefits of energy efficiency benchmarking, but I would like to emphasize focusing on three things. Through the benchmark system, the government can compare energy intensity among companies. We would like the government would like to have information from private companies, and government can recognize energy efficiency improvement potential that each industry has. Based on the potential analysis, we can do other policy to improve energy efficiency by recognizing improvement potential. Other things, most important thing is that company can recognize its energy efficiency potential. Information would be a most powerful tool to improve energy efficiency. We can provide information for energy efficiency performance to private companies. Private company can improve their energy efficiency by using benchmark indicator. So that's my point.
Thank you very much. Is Dr. Kumar still with us? Just interested to know. Yes, thank you. So, Dr. Kumar, of course, you've described the PAT scheme, which is a very comprehensive process. But if you were to look at the benchmarking element of that, you know, how do you think that benefits the government in particular? How does it benefit policy? You're muted, Dr. Kumar.
I'm sorry. Benchmarking has several benefits for a country like ours, particularly, you know, we have, if you see a pre-PAT era, we had a huge bandwidth of industries having, you know, the performance levels ranging from, if you compare in terms of specific energy consumption, the large bandwidth of units existing in the sector. So this benchmarking or the PAT kind of a exercise has narrowed down the, you can say, performance level. So the ones who are at the fringes of this bandwidth could somehow, you know, clean up their housekeeping and did their jobs and took certain low-hanging exercises, which has enabled them to come quite closer to what was earlier. And then that also has helped the sector as a whole to kind of compare themselves with the better ones and to see how they can move forward in the higher efficiency level. So that it gives us gives the industry a platform to assess where they are and to aspire for where they want to. So this particular benchmark exercise is very important for us, and we saw across the sectors. In you know, we see that in the narrowing of the bandwidth, and then the you can say having the benefit of that particular goalpost for them to you know, improve their efficiency and to look for options of adopting whether that is a practice or technology or any other experience sharing, so that they are able to get the benefit of the energy efficiency. And we see, you know, the whole benchmarking exercise has been kind of owned by the industry. You know, if you see in industry, in a country like ours, the industry like textile and pulp and paper are very diverse. You know, it is in the beginning you wouldn't even think of a possibility of a benchmarking to these industries. They are so diverse in their behavior, their, you know, how they operate, how they own. So lot of diversity in those sectors. Yet this benchmarking has helped to come to a platform where at least, you know, some kind of commonalities can be seen in the form of benchmarking, and that can benefit, and that has benefited a lot. Of course, you know, if you see the sectors like cement, you know, it has touched to global benchmarks. You know, we are lead in the efficiency level, and the other sectors are also moving much, faster in those directions to improve their efficiency. So certainly we would see that benchmarking has a lot of benefits. For then the outcome is, you know, we could save a lot of energy as well as the climate commitments contribution that comes from such exercises. So it is both, you know, for the industry as such, as well as the country for, you know, on a larger aim and objective that it helps us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, very comprehensive, very, very impressive experience. So if we go back to Brazil now, again, what do you think have been the main benefits from a policy perspective of the approach that Brazil's taken to benchmarking?
Well, benchmarking is really important for industry first to gain competitiveness, to seek what's best in terms of technology, and it is also important in terms of predictability of industrial processes. So they know the inputs, they know the outputs, and they seek, by benchmarking, they seek the best practice and best policies that are being adopted in the world, so we can see some similarities and try to implement them in our country. So benchmarking is important by doing this and being able to adopt some policies and to improve energy efficiency. We can see the potential of energy efficiency that we can have by implementing some policies that we are aware through benchmarking. And energy efficiency is important for a lot of reasons. We can postpone investments. We can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We can generate employments, jobs. So this is why I believe benchmarking analysis is important for energy efficiency in industry. And a very interesting aspect I would say is that, for example, cement industry, that is a local industry, they can benchmark processes and technologies all around the world. It doesn't mean that it's a local industry and the benchmark should be local. It's a really interesting aspect about benchmarking is that we can look for best practices all around the world. And we have an example of this put in the last Atlas of Energy Efficiency.
Great, thank you very much. Another very important point there about collaboration. And let's go to Italy. You know, what are the key benefits from your perspective for the policymakers?
Okay, first of all, ENEA is out of the government, okay? We are a public body, but we are not the policymaker. We support them technologically, okay, from a technical point of view. Anyway, I think that it's very important for the ministry to have these different approaches from the different agencies on the different aspects, okay? So we are doing the part of the energy audits, doing the benchmark of physical, from a physical point of view, and other agencies give more economic analysis. And also I think that it's important to have very different point of views of the same problem. So I think that it's very important to have on the one hand these different point of views aggregated, and also I think that it's very important to have granularity on the situation. Okay, so you can go to very detailed if you have this separation from in different agencies. You can go to very, very detailed if you have information that we can provide from other side. In any case, the benchmark is particularly it's necessary to have also a tracking from all what are happening with your policies, what are happening with the incentives, we are finishing, and we are the life of the different incentive schemes. So you can also track with this different information from the different agencies.
Thank you very much for that. We're coming to a close now, but I just in just one sentence, what would be your key recommendation to countries who are thinking about starting a benchmarking approach? And we'll go to Japan first, to Mr. Ozawa. Just one key point.
One key point. Good question. Thank you, Mel. One thing, best way. I think balance between regulation, and incentive is our key element to improve our energy efficiency policy. Because private company cannot invest only for regulation, incentive, and combination and incentive and regulation is key point, I think.
Thank you. That's a great point to end on. And Dr. Kumar, what will be your one key point to anybody who's starting out?
I think I would borrow some from Mr. Ozawa's point also. And I would add that along with that, I think information and communication would be, along with the regulation and incentive, you need to have a very strong means of communication of what the objectives and what is the benchmark is all about, to understand the participants. So that I think, and to some extent, the capacity, information and capacity, I would add.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Suarez, Brazil.
First, I'd like to highlight as well that EPE, we're not policymakers. We do studies that support the ministries to do policy, to develop policies. And I would say the key message is to bring together policymakers, the institution that provides studies, and the industry. We have to bring them all together to discuss actions and policies.
Thank you very much. And to Italy.
From our point of view, I think that the most important thing is that how to convert this obligation in opportunity. So it's very important to understand that there are several dimensions on energy efficiency, but you have a real good health ecosystem, you will have a real good work on the different aspects. So it's very important to have all the stakeholders involved and in a clearly a transparent way. So I think that is a very good point.
Brilliant, thank you. So as we need to draw to an end, I'd like to thank you all for all of your insights, for the formal presentations, but even more for your answers to the questions. I think you've actually provided an amazing summary yourselves, but the concept of balances between regulation and incentive, as you say, obligation, opportunity. We've seen a comprehensive program with Pat. We've seen details on audits. We've seen details on benchmarks. So I think we've had a really great trip around the important aspects of industrial energy efficiency and how benchmarking fits within that. So thanks once again. And thanks also to the people listening and to all your questions. The report's been published now, so you can take a look at that. And please also get in touch with the IEA if you'd like to work with us more closely on this topic. Thank you very much, and with that, we'll close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.